I was literally floating right above, and I know this is going to sound really dramatic to some people, but this is the truth. Hello my beautiful friends, and welcome back to my channel. So friends, today's video, as you can tell by the title, I'm going to be talking to you guys about my experience on antidepressants. You may or may not know, I have mentioned it in a couple of times, but I was actually on antidepressants for 5 years, from when I was 15 to when I was 20. So I have been off antidepressants now for just a little bit over a year, I want to say. So in those 5 years, I was actually on 2 different antidepressants. The first one I was on was Sertraline, and the second one I was on was Venlafaxine, Venaflux, I don't really know how to pronounce it, but yeah, they were the 2 antidepressants that I was on, and I am going to be talking about my experience on both of these different antidepressants. But I do just quickly want to say 2 things before we dive into the video today. So the first thing I want to say is that this video is actually the start of a series I'm going to be starting on my channel, which is super exciting, because I've never actually had like a proper series on my channel. So the series that I'm going to be starting is going to be called Mental Mondays. And ideally I will be uploading these on a Monday, and basically what they're going to be is, it's not going to be every Monday now, but I'll probably do like 1 a month, or however often you guys would like to see the Mental Monday videos. But basically, like every video we're going to be talking about a different topic in relation to our mental health. So if there are any questions or any topics you'd like me to discuss in relation to mental health, please do leave them in the comments down below, because I will be taking, you know, topics and stuff from there. But yeah, I just thought it was a nice idea, you know, somewhere where we can have a chat and be very honest and open, you know, me talking to you guys and then like having a chat down in the comment section, because I just feel like, you know, there is like a whole month dedicated to mental health, but I feel like, you know, it shouldn't just be a month, like it should be like a goddamn all year, you know. It's something that affects so many people, and I just feel like it'd be nice for us to have a little safe place where we can just come and chat and not feel alone and just feel like we have somewhere to go. I personally feel very strongly on talking things out and, like, you know, letting your emotions out into the open. So that's why I really do want to start this series, because I feel like it will get conversations flowing, it will get us thinking, it will get us talking, and I really do think it will, you know, be good for us, because I just know when I've been in like the darkest places, you know, and felt very alone, I just feel like something like that would have really helped me, even just a little bit. So yeah, and the second thing I quickly just want to say is that in relation to my PCOS video, I'm so grateful and so thankful. You've no idea for all of the love, the support, the comments, the messages I received. I have read every single comment and every single message. It is literally impossible for me to get back to everyone, but if I haven't got back to you, just know I am super grateful for whatever, you know, comment or message you left me. You know, I will be doing an update video soon, kind of, you know, chatting a bit more about it and whatnot, but yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much, because you guys have really helped me a lot, to be honest. I feel a lot less alone from reading a lot of your guys' comments and messages, and I also feel a lot more hopeful, and like I have hope, and you know, I'm not gonna let this goddamn illness or what diagnosis control my life. So one of the main reasons I want to talk about my experience on antidepressants is because I just feel like these things aren't spoken about enough. You know, so many people in this day and age are on medication, whether it be for anxiety, depression, bipolar, whatever it may be. There are so many people on medication these days for mental health issues, and it's just not spoken about. So there was just so many times when I was on my medications where I literally, you know, I felt like if I would have had someone to talk to who was also going through the same thing, I wouldn't as felt so alone in the situation. So yeah, I just feel like it's important for us to be open about these things and have a conversation about it. Okay, so now we're going to dive on into my experience on antidepressants. Okay, so I quickly just want to say that this is not going to be like my mental health story or my depression story or anything like that. I'm literally just going to be talking about, you know, my experience on these medications. Okay, so we're going to take it back. So I first started taking antidepressants when I was 15 years of age, and before I started taking them, you know, I struggled for quite a long time. I'd say like a year and a half to 2 years on my own without really telling anyone how I was feeling. I didn't really understand what was wrong with me, if I'm being honest. So yeah, when I was 15 and, you know, like I eventually spoke to my parents found out and whatnot, you know, I went to the doctor and I was prescribed Sertraline. Okay, so I was put on Sertraline and I was put on, like, you know, the lowest dose, whatever it is, and I was honestly really happy to have been taken, like that people were listening to me and I felt like I was actually being taken seriously, you know, that they were understanding what I was saying to them and like how I was not okay. So I was actually, like, I wasn't apprehensive or anything going on these medication because I felt so low in myself that I was just desperate for something to help me. So I was actually really happy to have been put on. Before I start talking and I go on to my experience, I just want to say that this is solely my experience. Every single person is so differently. Medications are going to react differently with different people. You know, you could have one medication and it will work awfully for one person and amazing for another person because we're all different, you know. Antidepressants are working with the chemistry in your brain because when you have depression, you do have a chemical imbalance in your brain, so they are working to fix that imbalance. But of course, everyone has different brains. Everybody's imbalance is different, two different extremes. So yeah, medications are going to affect people differently, just the same way food will affect people differently. So yeah, I just want to get that out there before we go any further, and I have anybody jumping on me in the comment section. But yeah, I'm sure you've heard before that when you are going on antidepressants, and to be honest, when you're going on a lot of medication, that things are going to get worse before they get better, and that is exactly what happened to me when I started taking Sertraline. So things got a whole lot worse, and I'd say in the first month is when, like, I really noticed it and I was really struggling. Like, my depression got a lot worse, my thoughts were so dark, my thoughts were getting like way more negative, which would have been very difficult because they were already extremely negative to begin with. And yeah, to be honest, I was just all over the place. Okay, so then I actually, you know, after that month I started feeling like a little bit okay, like a little bit more like stable in myself. It's really hard for me to remember exact time frames in relation to the Sertraline. I can remember like the Venlafaxine, the Venaflux time frame really well because that was like more recent, whereas when I was on Sertraline I was like 15, 16, so it was like years and years ago. But if I'm remembering correctly, I'd say I was probably on Sertraline like a couple of months, like 2-3 months or something, and I started getting a lot of really bad kind of side effects from this medication. So I noticed that like I literally became full of rage, and I was just so irritable. Like, I was so angry all the time. And before I went on antidepressants, I wouldn't have been a very angry person. I would have just been very upset, very emotional, very kind of down and sad. You know, I was never like angry and rageful. And that is what started to happen to me. And I started to I just felt like I didn't even like anybody anymore. Like, I felt like I didn't like people, and that everything just irritated me so much. Around this time I started falling out and fighting with like pretty much everyone in my life. Like, I was in a relationship at the time, my parents, my family, my friends, like I was just falling out with everybody because I was just so full of this rage. I started to get a lot of suicidal thoughts, and they were like really extreme, and I was also just constantly wanting to hurt myself and was hurting myself, and I just did not care about anything. Like, I cannot explain that to you. Like, I did not care about anything, like, you know what I mean, good or bad, I really did not care. And that's why like I was constantly having thoughts of hurting myself. Like, I didn't even care if I was going to hurt myself because that's how extreme it was. So in between me experiencing all these really nasty symptoms, I was back and forth to the doctor a lot, and every time I went back he would just up my dose and say that'll sort you out, and up it again and that'll sort you out. But every time he upped my dose, like, these symptoms just got more extreme and more severe and got a lot worse. So I ended up being on Sertraline, if I'm remembering correctly, for about 2 years, I want to say. And I ended up being put on the highest dose you can be put on of Sertraline. Like, they cannot prescribe any more than this dose. So that was all going on for 2 years, and then I literally got to a point and I was at the doctor's and I was like, this is not working for me. Like, this is not working. I'm still extremely depressed. I'm all over the place. Like, I don't even know who I goddamn am anymore. Like, this is not me. Like, this is an actual monster. And and he was like, okay, well, we're going to take you off the Sertraline and we're going to put you on Venlafaxine. And I'm so sorry if I'm saying that word wrong. I've always struggled to say that word. So yeah, I had to taper down off the Sertraline, and he started me on Venlafaxine. And basically, okay, so like the first 2 weeks of being on Venlafaxine, I was like starting off the lowest dose. I think it was like 25 milligram. I know like this story a lot better because it was more recent. But yeah, I felt amazing. The first 2 weeks I felt unreal. Like, I can't even explain it to you. Like, I literally proper felt like, you know, this was like some miracle drug in my system. Like, I felt amazing, and I was literally like, oh my god, like this is it, like this is like the antidepressant for me. Because, you know, with antidepressants it is a lot of trial and error. As I said, medications work differently for different people, you know. So my doctor was like, maybe that one just doesn't agree with you, we're going to try you on this one. So when I went on this one, I was like, this is the one for me, this agrees with my body, oh my god, this is how antidepressants are meant to work, yada yada yada. And basically, you know, because normally when you take an antidepressant, you know, they say it gets worse before it gets better. And I was like, this isn't even happening. Like, I'm not even having a worse before better. I'm literally just having like a huge better. He changed me to Venlafaxine because he was saying something about how whatever like family Venlafaxine's from, it's meant to give you more energy, whereas Sertraline is like a different family from Venlafaxine. So he was saying this one might suit you better, you know. So that's what I thought was happening. Like, I had all this energy, like I was feeling a lot more like positive and not so like depressed and miserable. But then like things just started to take a downturn. I'd say like after a couple of months again being on Venlafaxine, I started to get a lot of side effects. So with Venlafaxine, I was literally exhausted 24/7. Like, I cannot explain it to you. Like, I was literally was able to sleep for half of a whole day. Like, I was just exhausted and I wasn't doing anything. Like, if I was at home all day, I would be wrecked. Like, I just went and did a bloody marathon. I was getting really bad anxiety and panic attacks. Like, anxiety that I had never experienced before. Like, I always suffered with anxiety, but this was just like to the extreme, and I was having panic attacks in situations that I never had a panic attack before. For example, I was walking down the street in Dublin once before with my sister, and I literally just started having a full-blown panic attack, and I couldn't breathe. I was hyperventilating, like I was freaking out, and it was just because there was loads of people around me. Whereas like it was just mental, like they were coming on out of nowhere in really random situations. I was getting excessive sweating at night. This happened, I'd say, about like 6 months into me probably taking the medication, but oh my goodness, I was sweating nearly every night. I would wake up, my pajamas would be soaking, my bed sheets would be soaking, my duvet would be soaking, my pillow would be soaking. I'd have to change my clothes, I'd have to change my bed sheets. It was a nightmare. Like, nearly every single night that was happening on Venlafaxine, I became so numb. Like, I can't even explain this to you, but basically, okay, so just say, imagine you, right? What it felt like for me was that I was literally floating, right, above, watching everything happen to me, but I wasn't actually living it. Does that make sense? Like, I just felt so numb and so empty. I couldn't cry. I'm a very emotional person, and you know, I cry when I'm stressed, when I'm happy, when I'm angry, when I'm sad, when I'm excited, when I've seen like a dog. Like, I am a very emotional person, and I always have been, and that's just who I am. But on Venlafaxine, whatever, I couldn't cry. Like, I could not feel emotions. It was insane. Like, I couldn't feel happiness and I couldn't feel sadness. I couldn't feel anger. Like, I just felt like, normally life has ups and downs, do you know what I mean? And before I went on medication, like, my ups and downs were like this. But on Venlafaxine, like, I literally, it was like I was dead, and I was like out of my body. The best way to describe it is I basically felt like my emotions were fake. Like, my laughter felt fake. Like, if I was sad, it felt fake. If I, you know, was like smiling, it felt fake. Like, all my emotions felt fake. Like, they didn't feel real. I just couldn't feel. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't feeling like I was feeling before I went on this medication. I had absolutely no motivation. I just felt, again, like on Sertraline, like I didn't care about anything. Like, literally some really bad shit happened to me when I was on Venlafaxine, and some really good stuff. But when it came down to it, you know, I felt like I just didn't care. Like, I really wasn't bothered. Like, if you were to say, like, the world is going to end, I was, alright, blah. Like, everything was just like, meh. like whatever, literally whatever. That is how I felt about absolutely everything. I started to get a lot of memory issues and like struggling to remember things, like my short-term memory became like really fogged and like bad. Like I'd literally be mid-sentence and I just completely forget what I was saying, or like something that happened the other day, like I literally could not remember. So they were all the symptoms I was experiencing when I was on Venlafaxine, and bear in mind this was over a 3-year period, but all these symptoms started only a couple of months, like I'd say 2, 3, 4 months in of me being on this medication, but they only were getting worse. And basically in this time frame I was back and forth to the doctor so many times, and every time he just kept upping my dose. I was either on 300 or 350 milligrams. I want to say 350. But yeah, basically whatever dose I was on, that was like the highest dose they can physically prescribe to a fully grown adult. So yeah, that is like the cut-off point. So I was on such a high dose, and every time he was upping my dose, the symptoms were getting worse, and the numbing was getting worse, the emptiness, the sweating, all my symptoms were getting a lot worse. As my dose was being upped. I was on Venlafaxine for about 2 years, and I remember getting to a place in my head and I was just like, you know, I started to get really confused, okay, because at this stage I was on antidepressants for 4 years. Bearing in mind I was 15 when I started, so I was so young when I started. Like, you can only remember so far back of when you were like younger anyways. So I was starting to get really fogged in my memory, like, because I remember thinking like, I can't live like this anymore, like this medication is not doing any good for me, like it's doing worse for me than good. And I remember being like, I need to come off it. But one, because I didn't have any motivation from being on the medication, I didn't even have motivation to come off it. Like, I didn't even care. I was literally like, oh, I don't care. Like, I don't care. You know what I mean? If it's really fucking me up, like, I don't care. But then on the other hand, I was like, is my thinking just really distorted? Like, because I was even struggling to remember how I felt before being on antidepressants, because I was on them for 4 years at this stage. And then I started to be like, oh my god, no, I can't come off them because, you know, I need them. Like, I was dependent on antidepressants, this drug, for 4 whole years. So the thought of coming off them then started to scare me. Before this whole year, I literally, you know, was constantly having this battle in my head of wanting to come off them. There was something inside me telling me, Jessica, come off them. Like, literally like a voice in my head, like a monkey on my shoulder going, come off them, now, get off them, you need to get off them. And it was constant, and this happened for a whole year, but I was just so afraid, as I said, okay. And then it got to the point where I was literally like, you know what, I feel like I'm not in control of my life anymore. I don't even know what it feels like to be actually happy, to actually laugh. I'm not crying anymore. Like, I used to literally cry like a few times a week because that's just the person I am. I hardly cry. Like, at this point, I don't think I'd even cried in like months, which is just mental for me as a person. And I remember just like listing all these things off in my head. Like, I was like, the sweating, that's obviously related. Like, you know, there was a few of the symptoms that I was trying to see. I was like, is it related to that or is it not? At this point, I was so desperate just to be able to feel again. And that is like so sad to have to say, but I just wanted to feel again, and I just wanted to actually feel like I was living life in my body and not floating up above my body watching this body live life, you know. So yeah, I was like, you know, I was willing to take the chance of me coming off them and me being a lot worse. I was willing to take that chance than just staying on them and never knowing, you know. I was never knowing if I could be better off them, never knowing what it's like to feel. So I was just like, you know what, feck it. I was absolutely terrified to come off them, but I had to tamper off them over like a number of weeks because I was on such a high dose. And basically with this antidepressant, if you come off it like cold turkey, you can get really, really bad side effects. Like, I've literally heard stories of people can't walk, they can't see, like brain zaps, like it is really bad. So yeah, I was being like, you know, slowly coming off them, you know, lowering my dose every week or whatever it was for a matter of weeks. And then when I was completely off them, I'd say I was off them for like a week at this point, okay? And also they say, you know, coming off antidepressants can be the same as going on them. You can get a lot worse, you know, before you kind of even out a bit. Because if you think about it, in my situation, I've been on this drug for 5 years. My body has become so dependent on this. So once I come off it, like, you know, your body or my body is just going to be like what's going on? Like, where is this drug? Like, where are these chemicals for my brain? So I came off it, and after about a week, I literally, oh my god, I remember this so clearly. Like, I was standing in my kitchen, and I think I was like washing the goddamn dishes or something, and I just started crying. Like, I started bawling, crying. Oh, I'm gonna get like emotional, but this is like happy tears. Because I was like standing looking out the window, and like I was looking at birds, and like it was a beautiful day, and I just could feel again. Like, it was the first time after coming off them, I got like this overwave of like emotion, and it like felt real. Like, it wasn't just like a fake, it didn't feel like a really fake emotion, and I just couldn't believe it. Like, and for about 2 weeks I was literally on such a high after coming off them, because I was just in awe of being actually able to feel, and I was crying, and I was sleeping better, and I was eating, and I wasn't sweating, and like I was just like, this is insane. Like, I was starting to feel more like myself, like I wasn't floating anymore. But then after them 2 weeks, I did kind of take a bit of a dip, and I think it was kind of like a delayed reaction to me coming off them. So I did experience, I'd say like 3 months it kind of took for me to like proper get back on my feet. Like, I did kind of have like a lot of like ups and downs was coming off them, but they say it can take like months for it to get out of your system. So the side effects can be quite extreme coming off them. But yeah, after about 3 months of me coming off them, I felt like so back to like me, and I just felt like Jessica again. And I was, as I said, all the symptoms pretty much were gone, and I didn't feel numb anymore, and I didn't feel empty, and if anything, I just felt like overloaded with all these different kinds of emotions that I literally did not feel for 5 years. Like, that is how it felt. Like, I felt like a toddler feeling goddamn emotions for the first time again. I think it had a huge thing to do with me being so young when I went on them, because your brain isn't even developed at that age. So yeah, I honestly was so happy when I came off them, and when I looked back after I came off them, I could see how badly they were affecting me. Like, there's even certain points of my life over them 5 years that I can't remember, like huge portions and chunks of different stages from when I was 15 to 20 that I actually can't remember, and I genuinely think that was because I was so numb. And like, even if I was in conversation with someone, like I'd be looking at them, but like I'd just be like off here in planet goddamn Pluto. Like, I was just never felt present when I was on them. Like, that's the best way to describe it. Now, I know it sounds like I'm talking very negatively about them, but on one hand, I did have a really awful 5 years and a really bad experience on them, but on the other hand, I genuinely believe if I had never have gone on antidepressants, and I know this is going to sound really dramatic to some people, but this is the truth, that I would not be here today. And I don't say that lightly, and the reason I say that is because when I first went on antidepressants, I was at such a low place in my head and in my life, that when I was put on them, and I actually felt like I was being heard, and people were like listening and accepting that I felt the way I was saying I felt. I just felt that, number one. And the second thing, I felt like because I was taking this pill, in my head it was like, this is helping you, this is helping you, this is going to help you, it will help you, you know what I mean? So I feel like if I never had that, like, I honestly don't think I would still be here, because I've had really low lows in my life. I don't think I will ever go on them again personally. Now, of course, I'm never going to say never, but I don't think I will, just because I had 2 really bad experiences, and I kind of feel like they kind of controlled my life for a very long time, and I wasn't in control. And I feel like now I'm still learning how to like gain that control back. And for the first few months coming off them, I had to learn how to deal with my emotions again, because for 3 years when I was on Venlafaxine, I just couldn't really feel anything. So when I came off them and I had like all these emotions, I had to learn how to manage them again, and how to deal with them, and how to know when to go, Jessica, you need to calm the fuck down. So yeah, like, it wasn't easy at all. But I also think I much prefer feeling in control of my life than feeling really out of control and like I'm not even living my life, if that makes sense. Also, quickly, just want to say the reason I stayed on Venlafaxine for so long, for 3 years, and I didn't come off them after a year of all these symptoms, you're probably like, Jessica, what the hell? It was because I just kept thinking of them first 2 weeks on Venlafaxine, and I was like, they obviously agree with me, my body's just settling down, it's going to get better, it's going to get better. I kept just like convincing myself that was going to get better, but obviously, But yeah, I do just want to say, you know, I personally think antidepressants are amazing. They do save lives and they do help a lot of people, and a lot of people probably wouldn't be here today without them. And I honestly don't regret going on them, because as I said, I don't think I would be here if I didn't go on them. You know, I do regret not coming off them sooner, but I don't think I was in the right place to come off them. You know, when I came off them, I felt like I was in a mentally strong place that if I did hit a low, that I was going to be able to deal with it. So yeah, you know, I'm not bashing antidepressants whatsoever. That is just my experience. Like, I feel like it's good to be aware of these symptoms and stuff, because if you are on a medication and you are getting these symptoms, please don't do what I do and just stay on them for 2, 3, 5 goddamn years. Please change antidepressant or whatever medication, because if you really feel like you need a medication, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, most of us do at some point in our life. You know, we're only human. Sometimes we just need a little bit of help to get through a really difficult time until we are mentally strong enough to be able to deal with things and manage things on our own. But yeah, if you do feel, you know, if you are having really bad symptoms and stuff, please go to the doctor and change medication. You know, I wish I did that. I wish I would have trialed and errored more of them, because maybe I would have found one that wouldn't have affected me in such a negative way. I think the main reason why I didn't go back and keep changing or demanding a change and saying this wasn't working for me was because I was so afraid to keep experiencing the really low you can get when you start an antidepressant and then have to come off it. So I didn't want to have to keep doing that, because that period on both Sertraline and Venlafaxine was really difficult for me, where I went really down when I first started taking them, and also when I was coming off. You know, it was like a lot of like whoa. So I think that's why I didn't want to keep switching. But you know, realistically, I just wasted 5 years dealing with absolute hell of symptoms, when, you know, it might have just been 2 weeks of having a really shit time. You know, that makes no sense. Like, you know, having 2 weeks of a shit time compared to basically 5 years of awful symptoms, like, that way outweighs this one by far. But yeah, that was my experience on antidepressants. I would love to hear your experience on them, what you think, if they've worked for you, if you're thinking of going on them. Yeah, I'd love us to just have an open conversation about this subject down in the comment section below. And as I said, if you have any topics or that you would like for my Mental Monday videos, please do let me know. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all so very much, and I'll see you all so very soon. Bye bye, friends.